Hello, welcome to 60 Second Reviews. I'm Steve and today I'll be covering the multi-level engagement in as short a time as possible. A multi-level engagement is any form of combat taking place in such a way that one or more parties can be significantly impacting it while they themselves cannot be fully engaged. You've probably seen them often in-game without even noticing. They're most effective in situations where you're either numerically or capably outmatched by your opponents, and their main purpose is to exploit the amount of ground your enemy must cover to achieve the same effect. For example, say you have 3 tanks that do a combined total of 3,000 damage per minute, and you put them all in one place. The enemy are going to have 6 tanks, which will all focus fire, and they have 6,000 DPM. Now let's say they rush you, they flank you, and the engagement lasts 1 minute. Right? And then you die. You've done 3,000 damage over 1 minute, and the enemy have gained 100 meters of ground. Now, roll it back. This time, we'll take your 3 tanks and we'll put one up front, one back here behind an arc, and the other back here behind this arc. Now, when those 6 tanks attack, they focus fire, same as before, take the same amount of theoretical damage from the same 3 tanks, but they've only killed 1 tank by moving the same 100 meters. As they then have to move on to the next, they get the same thing again, then the next one, taking more damage at each stage. The supportive tanks also, of course, have the option to run away from their secure positions if they deem it necessary. And so you can see why, when placed in the defensive position, it's far better to spread out your forces in mutually supportive positions than sit them all in one place. You get to invest less and gain more. Let's talk about some nuances of this particular tactic. So it's important to remember the distinguishing factors for a true multi-level engagement, and that is, it should be reasonable for you and the enemy to consider attacking the forward positions and the supported positions as separate moves. Right? For instance, this Waffenträger in support with a light tank up front baiting is a multi-level engagement, whereas this similar setup is not, simply because if the enemy were to commit to an attack on the light tank, they could engage the Waffenträger from the same position that they engaged the light tank from without having to spend time moving to do so. Oh, bugger. Make sure to note, the multi-level engagement is a defensive strategy. It spreads out your forces, which, yes, makes them harder to engage, but also makes decisive action harder for you. You do not want to be using it on a flank that you have a clear and obvious advantage on. If the enemy aren't going to attack the first tank, then the second and third mutually supported positions are basically useless, and you'd do far better to push the advantage with your team. If you sense that you're going to start losing at that point, it's generally not hard to send someone back to that original supported position and prepare for the commitment. Let's talk about counterplays. If I were to play this strategy as a card in a game, it would look something like this. Although it's a very basic strategy, it's very powerful for defensive play. Like everything, however, it has its faults. The first thing it's important you do as a player is to recognise when it's happening. If you go around the hill on Himmelsdorf, there's gonna be a tank there, right? If you're poking around here on Mountain Pass, you're gonna get shot from the hill. Now, granted, those assumptions are based on experience, right? And I don't expect everybody to be able to assume such, but if you do recognise that the enemy team has a multi-level engagement, a strong one, what it means is that they do not want to engage that area. They have spread out their forces anticipating an attack which, while it has strengthened their defensive capability, yes, it's weakened their attacking capability massively. Say you needed 3 tanks to hold a flank against the enemy 3. Well, then they go and set up a multi-level engagement, they spread out, and now you only need 1 tank to hold that flank. The other 2 are freed up to move and adapt they should. Multi-level engagements are only strong when they're attacked into. They're generally focused against one very particular position in a very linear manner, meaning that any variation of regular gameplay will often disrupt them. A great example of this is Live Oaks. You see this situation quite often. If you attack these guys, you get shot by these TDs. So you do well to remember that while multi-level engagements do utilise mutually supported positions, that's often only true if you attack headlong into them. Look at my nipples! The single best way to destabilise an MLE is to attack the supported positions first. Recognise that they've thrown away their ability to mount effective offense on that flank by distancing themselves from each other, and then make their positions redundant by not attacking into them. On Himmelsdorf, go around the side, on Liveoaks, other side of the railway tracks, on mountain paths, go back and over the middle and the bridge. Bear in mind, if you do set up an MLE against good players, it's likely that they will relocate and try and subvert expectation. At that point, an effective counterplay can be to group up again and push on that flank. It's exactly what they're not expecting if they do pull their forces back. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Do leave a comment with your thoughts, and if there's anything I missed, I will respond to every single comment, so you're guaranteed a response. And if we can hit 350 likes on this video, that would be absolutely amazing. The response on the previous episode of this was fantastic, so I appreciate everyone for their engagement with that. And until next time, farewell.